broadcasting live on YouTube Hangout. I've been trying all morning to get this broadcast going, and it was very, very difficult. But I thank everyone who will tune in later. And if you have not joined up with us, please join up with us on Facebook at the 19 Network. That is our fan page. You can join up with us on YouTube at the 19 Report and share the information if you find it helpful. Share the information, like the page and subscribe, please. I can't express how important it is to get a lot of subscriptions, a lot of likes. It's digital and it's algorithms, but when you're being noticed, you get more opportunities to do more things. And we would like to be able to do much, much more on Facebook as well as on YouTube. We would like to be able to play live music on Facebook. And the more followers you get, the more people are involved, then the further you go, that the more things you're allowed to do. Now, I'm going to be talking from the monitor here because I don't like to ramble on. So I have everything on the monitor in front of me. Thank everyone for tuning in again. This is Jamil Salib Zamir, Brother Johnny, the 19 Report. And today we'll be talking about childhood emotions and neglect. It's a subject that we've touched on many occasions. You can go to our website at YouTube, the 19 Report on YouTube, and you'll see a lot of different topics where we've talked about neglect. Everything that we talk about is talking about the internal struggle of people and individuals and what we must do as individuals to become a collective. So thank you for tuning in. And I'm trying again to post up on your story on Facebook Live. It always broadcasts, but it never posts it up for people to see it later. So here we go. God willing, this won't take more than an hour, but we are going to go slow through the information because I feel it is very, very important. Now, there's a song out called Mask Off. I think Future is the rapper of the song, and that can be interpreted all kinds of ways, but I want to take the words and reinterpret them in a biblical language and direct these words towards preachers, towards teachers of the book before we begin our lecture today. And the reason I want to do that is because there is a separation occurring between the wheat, separating the wheat and the tare. And if you don't know what that means, study it a little bit more and see what is being said in the biblical text. And as I said before, we know that the Bible has been tampered with. We know that it has been reinterpreted over 81 times in 81 different languages by 81 different people or more. So of course there are going to be inconsistencies and contradictions, but all it takes is a person with common sense to know what is and what isn't, and a person with a keen eye given to them by God to see when something isn't right. So we're going to the King James Version of the Bible, and I think it's Matthew, the book of Matthew. And I was fast in posting this up, and I did not get the chapter and verse. So just a minute. Let me get this because I don't like. Okay, Matthew 23 and 27. That's Matthew, the book of Matthew, chapter 23, verse 27 of, I'm coming out of two different Bibles. That's the King James Version of the Bible, and then I'm going to reinterpret it in the New International Version because it's a little more clear. Mask off. King James 23 and 27. Woe unto ye, you scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, with an exclamation point, for you are like unto white sepulchres, which indeed appear beautiful outward, but are within full of dead men's bones and of all kinds of uncleanness. Now, this is a verse that was given to me probably about 27 years ago while I was asleep. I was asleep on the floor in my mother's house, and this verse came to me, and I think it applies now to mask off. Now I'm going to interpret it into the New International Version, then we're going to get into the context. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You are like whitewashed tombs, which look beautiful on the outside, but on the inside are full of bones of dead and everything unclean. Now, we are all wearing a mask. We did a commentary entitled Plastic People, and we did another one entitled Behind the Mask. and we did another one. I don't recall the title of it, but go to our YouTube website. And we did these prior to this song, Mask Off. But when you are hiding something behind a mask, the real person never gets to show their face. The real person never gets to express themselves, either out of fear, out of doubt, or out of suspicion of the people that you are in front of. So you build up a persona. A lot of people appear to be happy all the time. A lot of people appear to be angry all the time, always mean mugging, and you get to know them and they're the nicest people. The people who appear to be happy all the time, you get to know them and they're very, very sad, because you get into a relationship a lot of times with this beautiful woman who appears to be so confident, and then you find out that she's very needy. Likewise with men who appear very confident, but you find out that they're very vain, very needy. These are all repercussions of neglect, of emotional neglect at an early age or as an adult. A lot of people are being neglected as adults, and the pain of neglect in a marriage, in a relationship, relationship counselors have studied the divorce rate. This is true, and found that most people don't get divorced because of money. Most people get divorced or lack of money, or not even because of infidelity. Most people get divorced because of they're feeling neglected. Their needs emotionally aren't being met. They don't have engaged in conversation of quality. They aren't able to express themselves. They aren't able to be who they want to be because they have to act all the time. So emotional neglect causes a lot of problems. Now, we are all guilty of it, of not being there for someone that needed us at a particular time. One of the main reasons for divorce in this country, as I stated, is emotional neglect. Our children are detached because of emotional neglect. We are lost due to the same emotional neglect. So we seek comfort. We seek recognition or our identity in things. Emotional neglect can contribute to heart problems. These are all scientific facts. High blood pressure, suicide, promiscuity, and mental illness. Emotional neglect feels like the mind and body are like an empty shell that has no purpose. So when our children display a reckless lifestyle, know that they may be crying out for attention, not pity. Pity and attention are two different things. And this is where the word empathy comes back into play. The proper understanding of how a person feels, why they feel that way, and being able to relate to their pain, that we can help them through a difficult situation. Now, I was neglected as a child, and I always like to use myself as the example. I was very neglected, and I felt as a friend I was neglected because I'm 47, maybe 48, I don't know. But all of the people that I considered friends, I fought. And I didn't fight them because I wanted to knuckle up with them. I fought them because evidently they had an internal problem with me. And so now at 47, after investing all of this time into these friendships, you're friendless because they weren't friends to begin with. These are the masks that we put on, the mechanisms that we use to try and shield what we feel, how we feel, until it can no longer be constrained, restrained. So as a husband with my first wife, as a parent, I felt neglected. And in turn, I know that I neglected others. Now, we are a society of broken people existing on the things that this world says makes us whole. This is how we exist. We are motivated to get up and go do things because of the things that we will eventually be able to get by doing these things. I told my wife one day, if it wasn't for work, I don't know what most people would do. They wouldn't get out of bed. They wouldn't be motivated to do anything. Their motivation is the money. Their motivation is the fact that they have to survive. We're talking about childhood neglect and emotional neglect. We are broadcasting live on Facebook and on YouTube. Facebook at the 19 Network, and on the regular page, the crowd page, and the public page, and on YouTube on our personal website. And we're also recording this just in case as a backup. Now, a lot of our failure and inability to achieve the level of success in life that we are capable of achieving derives from the psychological effects of childhood neglect. Alcoholism, drug abuse, sexual addiction, long-term mental illness, anxiety, all can be contributed to childhood neglect. And parents, siblings, cousins, nephews, aunts, and uncles need to know what they've done or may not have done in order to try and correct the problems for future generations. We have to fix issues for future generations. The thing with us, as my youngest son said, he's 11 now, why do I have to do things for the future? I want to be able to enjoy it right now. That is the mentality of a person and people who don't understand what their actions are doing to the reactions of the future. So when I come down on trap music, gangster music, fake, what I call fake gospel music, crooked businessmen, crooked politicians, when we come down on people like that, it's because for right now in the present, they are benefiting, their families are benefiting, but in the long run, the destruction will be so severe that we will not be able to reverse the effects of it. And someone has to take up the baton and say, I'm going to be a warrior for justice, and I'm going to take on the pain, the suffering, the hurt to try to correct things that need to be corrected now so that they will get better in the future. Now, most of us don't look at the future. And if we do look at the future, we look at it as if though we make it based on how we live. And that's not true. It's a collective thing that makes the future. You can grow a garden in your backyard. You can grow that garden. But if you are living around hooligans and ruffians, they will destroy that garden. So when you begin to think a different way, you have to introduce the people around you to that different way. Everyone is not going to be receptive of it. Neglect, childhood emotional neglect. Why are the women so insecure that they have to cover themselves from head to toe in fake everything and then post the picture up and wait for you to respond and say they look good? Not one day, but every day. Why are we that way? Why do the men feel they have to have a six-pack, myself included? Why do we feel we have to have the smoothest skin? Because someone called us ugly. Someone made a suggestion to us that we were not accepted into their way of thinking because of something we didn't have. Emotional neglect. It is psychological bullying. The biggest issue in the Black community and Black communities and communities in general, but I can only speak for Black because I'm Black. I don't know what goes on in any other community, but what is presented in the public. The biggest issue in Black communities is our inability to talk about the things that matter. We can hold a 10-hour conversation about sports, but can't talk 10 minutes about neglect, about mental illness. Among our people, we love gossip and hearing about other people's shortcomings. And that's why YouTube channels about ratchet people are so popular. They're showing other people's issues, analyzing problems in other people's lives, but they're not addressing the issues within themselves. Now, we love it because that's someone else being pointed out as wrong. We love that. And we use the phrase, "At least it ain't me. At least I ain't the only one." And we do these things to convince ourselves that I'm stupid, but at least I ain't the only one stupid. As if though it is a honor to have a bunch of stupid people following you. And in life, in business, in religion, in school, we have a bunch of ignorant people in groups that are doing nothing for the future for our children besides getting jobs, but not creating them. This is an issue. Never addressing the internal issues. We literally believe that God is just going to fix every single problem we have. Even though suicide, murder, self-mutilation, mental illness, and other illnesses dealing with the self, including heart and physical health, have proven that God will not fix it until we make an attempt to fix it ourselves. Until we address the issues and understand how to pray, what we're praying for. You know, people are just praying. Out of all the evil people in Texas, all the evil people in different states, we're just praying God help them as a whole. We don't say, God, let your will be done. We don't know the full picture, the full scope. We don't know, but help us have patience and understand why it was done. Let your will be done. We don't do that. We pray everybody. We love everybody. But as I stated on last week, there are 7 things that God hates. So if we love everything and God hates 7 things, who we with? In my Bernie Mac voice, we have to be with devil. Because if God doesn't like it, I don't like it. I don't even care if it's me. If it's something that I'm doing that is disapproved of by God, then I'm wrong, period. I got to fix it. I got to work on it. I got to study it. Do you know that when a plane goes down, whether it's in the water, on the land, if the FAA can get the plane back, or the investigators, do you know they put that whole plane back together to find out where the explosion or the problem happened? They put it all in a hangar and put it back together. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty Dumpty back together again. You and I, we're that Humpty Dumpty. They couldn't put us back together again because we were denying what broke us in the beginning. I'm hoping that makes sense. We're talking about childhood emotional neglect, and I know that 99.9% of us experienced it, or we did it to someone else. And we're going to go through some of the emotions connected with childhood neglect, and then we're going to close with solutions to the problem. So all of these physical issues can be attributed to neglect. I know it. I remember when I was young, I used to make myself sick, make myself throw up, make myself something on me swell up. I would take what do you call it? The headscarf, the pantyhose, and I would either tie it around my arm at night so that my hand would swell, or tie it around my foot so that my foot would swell, or I would take the pillow and on the edge and fold it and sleep on my eye so that when I woke up, my eye would swell, because I would get attention. Oh, he's not feeling well, he's sick. And for that day, I could stay home and be pampered. And I did that a lot because I needed emotional connection that I never got. And can you think of the people who are drugged out, who are mentally ill, who can't find their way in life? Brilliant people. All they needed was love from the person they admired and respected, and they would have risen to the occasion and become that great person. But they never did, because they never received the love. And worse than that, the person that they trusted and relied on talked about them and destroyed the little self-esteem they had left. And then when they fall apart, the same people are there to say, I don't know what happened to him. That is an ignorance that we carry. And if we don't address that ignorance, we'll never fix the problem. God does not help us until we help ourselves. We always repeat in the scripture, God bless the child who has his own. It's not just talking about money. You have to have your own ability to think for yourself, find solutions to issues, and God will help you along in that process. Then you can bear witness to God's assistance, and then you can speak with power that God is real and help others to understand how to get to God as well. But we will never be able to do that if we dodge the issue, if we run from the issue, if we make excuses and point fingers. It's everybody else's fault, but not mine. We never find a solution. Now, most people may not realize the effect this lack of nurturing, connecting, and compassion has had on our life as children, on our life as adults, on adults who have been emotionally neglected, often mislabel their unhappiness as something else. They're labeled as depressed, clinically depressed. They have marital problems. They have anger issues or anxiety. All of these I've had. I get choked up thinking about it and thinking about all of the people that could have been helped if we had found out about this information earlier and began to share it. But we don't share anything. We share scores of football, baseball, rap, gospel. But information like this, that same share button is right there. We don't use it. But yet we'll go and say, I love helping people. Helping people is not giving them something. The scripture says if you give a man something, he eats for a day. But if you teach him how to get it for himself, he's set for the rest of his life. So many of us are liars and hypocrites. And that's why I read what I read earlier. I'm going to read it one more time. And I'm hoping I don't lose my page. I was on page 2 at the bottom. But I want to read one of these anyway, if I can get this. Okay. In Matthew 20 and 27 says, woe to you teachers of the law, Pharisees, you hypocrites, with an exclamation point. You are like whitewashed stone. You look good, which look beautiful on the outside, but on the inside are full of bones of dead and everything unclean. That is us. We lie with a straight face. All I want to do is see people do good. I want to help people. And you're seen on the front line doing, but you're always giving and never teaching. There's a difference. Now we need desire, a genuine love, unconditional. And most of us die, but never get it. I'm going to say that again. We need genuine love, unconditional love. I have not been able to connect with anyone because the minute I say, Inshallah, Allahu Akbar, God is the greatest, or the minute I say black people need to stick together, the minute I say something that you disagree with, you don't like me anymore. Why do I have to change to be your friend? This is who I am. I introduced myself. This is Jamil Salib Zamir. I don't cause trouble. I don't speak words that instigate violence, but God has told me to tell the truth. And in telling the truth, many of us don't even realize that Jesus was a loner. Everybody around him wanted something, but no one was on his level of understanding. And he said on one occasion, how long must I deal with you? Not that I'm saying I'm Jesus. I'm not saying that at all. But there are many Jesuses out there. People who are willing to give their life to see the masses of the people free from their own ignorance. Now we need desire, a genuine love, unconditional, and most of us die but never get it. So although we may have achieved much in life, we leave this earth broken and undoubtedly breaking others along the way. Now I want to read some of the long-term effects of childhood neglect, and then a solution, and then we're going to close. Long-term effects of childhood, of the failure of childhood attachment. Now we are learning more and more about this is scientists talking. We're learning more and more about the long-term effects. Why are they learning more and more? Because they study. Why aren't we learning anything? Because we just love to know things. I know. Hey, did you hear about, I know. What do you know? Well, I know. You know? We don't want to study, we just want to know. Now we're learning more and more about the long-term effects of children who do not make positive and nurturing connections with their parents or other consistent adult caretakers during their childhood. They're studying this. We now know that it is crucial for parents to form a strong and loving attachment to their babies. If they do not, their children will be at risk for a variety of emotional, social, and learning problems as they go through childhood and into adolescence and adulthood. Does that sound familiar? Are your children being doped up with heroin? Because that's what ADHD drugs have in them, heroin. And now the crooked scientists are saying ecstasy is good because it calms you down. So they're doping up the children, doping up the adults with this new marijuana. It's not the marijuana that you just grow and smoke for a mellow. It's marijuana produced in a chemical lab that is going to mess your brain up the minute you don't have it. But we are so happy just to be able to do something. Excuse me. We don't think about the consequences of what we're doing. And later on, generation after generation destroyed. Mama smoking marijuana. They have a marijuana that's supposed to make women orgasm. Daddy smoking marijuana. Addicted to marijuana, and they go have a baby. What kind of baby are you going to have? An Einstein? Or some child that is slow in brain development because you've slowed down your sperm, slowed down your blood, slowed down your ability to comprehend simple things, and then make excuses for the child. And the child is punished with that, as the scripture says. God holds us accountable. Generation after generation of our children will be affected. Now, developmental problems from being neglected. Listen to this. Developmental problems from trying to get attention from mom, from dad, from whoever is around. Developmental problems. Young children are committing suicide. Beautiful young girls of all colors, beautiful young, handsome young boys of all colors, because they can't seem to connect with anyone. They want a genuine closeness, not acting. In this town, Manning, 5 days you see somebody, this is my bestie, this is my bestie friend, and next week I can't stand them. So that's not genuine. That breaks something in you. Now you don't have the natural ability to trust anybody. So in every situation, your body is on a heightened alert, and the body is not designed to stay in heightened alert. Fight or flight is only for when you're in trouble, but we stay in fight or flight mode. I don't trust him. I don't trust him. I don't trust him. When he gonna mess up? I don't trust him. This is an issue. And this is why we're running to drugs. But drugs are a temporary fix. Developmental problems. These are some of the issues. May have difficulty with processing what they hear. I say, no, I don't want you to wear those pants. You perceive it as me saying you're ugly. I know I've been through all of these things that I'm reading. I've been through them, and I still go through them. But a real friend of mine called me on yesterday. Hadn't heard from him in probably 3 or 4 months. You on my mind, brother, he says. I know you there fighting by yourself, and I want you to know that I'm here thinking about you. And he starts to tell me about the NIFT, NIAF, all of these emotions inside of you that you've developed over time that cause you to fall apart at certain times. And he said, you're fighting these things, but you see them. And because you see them, that puts you closer to God. And I was thinking, when the Bible said the sons of God went to worship God and Satan came along with him, none of the sons of God realized that Satan was present until God says, whence cometh thou, Satan? So that was a sign that all of these negative parts of ourselves we don't address because we're too busy pointing fingers at everyone else outside of us. And since they look good, we think that they are good for us. And this causes us to become underdeveloped in our thinking. We don't hear things properly, may have difficulty expressing ourselves verbally. That's why we get so angry and fight, even though I'm well-spoken and more calm when I'm alone. When someone challenges me, I always get tongue-tied. And before I know it, my fists are clenched. I'm ready to go to battle now. So I try to stay away from people until I can control myself, and I gradually introduce myself back into these situations, because after it's over with, you say to yourself, I should have said this. I shouldn't have been so angry. I should have said that. And there's another thing I should have said, but it's too late. Another problem with childhood emotional neglect may have gross motor problems, lack of balance, lack bumping into things. My mother used to bump into things. I bump into things. My mother had it rough as a child with her siblings, and she gave it to us rough. Many experience delays in fine motor adaptive skills. Many have inconsistent levels of skills in all of the above areas. They're lacking conscious development, may not show normal anxiety following aggressive or cruel behavior. Now, this is very important because we take a child not reacting to fear as he tough. So everybody want to put their child in football so they can bash their brains out and get more ignorant, running their head into things and just, oh, he tough, that McNabb. May not have normal anxiety following aggressive or cruel behavior. Slap them around and they just stand there. Oh, you tough, huh? No, I got mental illness. And it's going to get worse as I get older. May not show guilt on breaking rules or laws. May project blame onto others. It's always somebody else's fault. And that is us. That is society. The white man says it's the black man's fault. The black man say it's the white man's fault. The white man and black man say it's the gay's fault. Everybody saying it's Trump's fault. Trump saying it's the Mexican fault. The Mexican saying it's your fault. It's everybody's fault, and then it's nobody's fault. But we never take responsibility in the right way. So our children hear us blaming everybody. You know, the man got his foot on my neck. I can't do nothing. Oh, you could do something. You just don't want to do what you're able to do. So you're looking for excuses. Just a minute. I had to bring some water. I did. This is my favorite mug. May see self as undeserving. I remember DMX, the rapper, had just completed a concert where he had hundreds of thousands of people cheering and listened to him chant his prayers and singing his songs, and got backstage and he fell down and started screaming, "Why, God? Why did you give me this? I don't deserve this." Red Fox, the same way. If you haven't seen the unsung of Red Fox, look at it. Those past demons come back, and out of all we have achieved, we feel as if though we don't deserve it. I'm the same way. Robert Harrison, the late Robert Harrison, felt like he was never funny enough. Always trying to do better, always beating ourselves up. I was psychoanalyzed by a psychologist because I took psychology in school, in college, child psychology and adult psychology. And my psychology teacher told me, you're an overachiever and you're a perfectionist. And I said, you are right. And she said, but you are these things for the wrong reason. You never think that you're good enough, but you're good enough. All of these because of childhood emotional neglect, never getting attention for doing good, always getting attention for doing bad. Impulse control, may exhibit poor control, may need external controls on behavior. Drugs, may exhibit lack of foresight, just do things and don't see an outcome. Does that sound familiar? Black people do it all the time. Why you do that? I don't know. My son was in college, one of the smartest people I ever known. I always keep this trophy up here. He was in high school and he beat out college students in Marsh College, Upward Bound, highest average in geometry in 2006. The boy was just smart. He didn't have to study. He just retained things. And he was in college. My wife and I went to take him some stuff to college. Somebody said, oh, he quit. He quit. And 2 weeks later, my sister calls me. He's in the paper for breaking into somebody's car. And I asked him, why did you break in the car? I don't know. So I knew there were mental issues. I had them. He's got them. And it's going to trickle on down until somebody says enough is enough. I'm going to pick up my sword and shield. I'm going to fight with God, and I'm going to try to change the things that can be changed. And regardless as to who dislikes it, they're just going to have to dislike it, because you'll find wicked people in this world who have themselves set, don't want you to say anything to break up them. All of these black folks who claim to love Dr. King now didn't love him then because he was messing up their thing. Same thing with Malcolm. Same thing with Donald Elijah Muhammad, Minister Farrakhan. They didn't love him then, but they're on the boat now because it's easy now. It's the in thing. Poor control, lack of foresight, may have poor attention span. How many of your children are coming home and they're saying, oh, he got ADHD, attention deficit? Why? Because he didn't get enough attention. So now he's depleted of attention and he wants it so bad, he can't sit still. She can't sit still. They're letting every boy rub on him, screw him. What's wrong with you? I just need some attention. Not the negative kind, genuine. Interpersonal interactions may lack depths in relationship. You're not able to hold a relationship. This is all due to childhood emotional neglect. May demand affection and exhibit hostile dependency. Who you? What you doing talking to that girl? Oh, this is my cousin. I'm gonna kick her ass. Just you for me. Mary J. Blige said when she was the only woman on Puff Daddy's label, she was comfortable and she could sing. She was hurting, but she could express herself. And then when more women start coming on the label and Puffy was showing other women attention, she wasn't able to handle that. She literally had to leave the label because that attention she needed. May need to be in control of all situations. Does that sound familiar? The women of today, they got to control everything. You the man, you got to be sitting back there like you a little child. The pimp, the preacher, who got to control the congregation and make sure they all following his lead. Nobody can speak out of turn. These people have mental issues. They're sick. We all are sick. Many of us don't know it. We just find scriptures in the Bible that goes along with what we want to do and leave it right there. Or point fingers at everybody else. I'm glad I'm saved and sanctified. No, you're not. You just a mask on liar. And worse, you're lying to yourself. And lying to yourself puts you in a position for eternal damnation. At least, you know, my son, his godfather has been a homosexual all of his life, but he's a friend to my wife, and he was her best friend before I met her. I met him. I loved the guy. He taught my other two sons about cooking, and if you want nice things, you got to do this and do that. Always dress nice. Just a nice guy. But the thing that made me respect him more is when he said, I know that what I'm doing is wrong, and I know I'm going to have to pay for it. I don't making no excuses for that. And he's went so far as to say, I don't like faggots. And he's been homosexual all of his life. But I don't like flamboyant people. I don't like to express that part of that's a private part of me. That guy I like because he's honest. Emotions may have trouble understanding basic cause and effect. I ain't bothering nobody by getting drunk. Why y'all bothering me? You come in the house, you knock over everything, half burned down the house because you left the eye on. You're snoring because you're almost drowning on your own vomit. You're disrespecting people in the house. You smell horrible. You look horrible. You can't keep a job, but I ain't bothering nobody. Childhood neglect. May have difficulty expressing feelings appropriately, especially anger, sadness, and frustration. I have been trying for almost 3 years to get this lady to admit that she's hurt by the fact that her husband committed adultery on her many times. But she keeps it in the hand of Jesus. Keep it in the hand of Jesus. And every now and then it'll slip out. And I'm saying to myself, if you would just be honest with yourself, God can help. Not me. I just want to be the listening ear. Because my wife cheated on me and it tore me apart. Gave me children that weren't mine. I gave her my last name and it tore me apart mentally, spiritually, emotionally. And it felt as if though she didn't have to suffer no repercussions. She's a great thing, my ex-wife, a great finger pointer. It's always everybody else's fault. And she's good at playing the sob role, so everybody gonna crowd around her. She got caught in a house with another woman's man. The woman beat her behind, gave her a black eye. She came home and had the children thinking that I did it. Had her grandmother thinking that I did it. And 5 years later, that woman said, all that time, that girl had us thinking that you hit her. Now, somebody could have killed me thinking that I abused a woman and I didn't touch her. Dr. Edward Keith wanted to call the police on me for spousal abuse. I didn't even touch the girl. Now, I'm not talking bad about Edward Keith. I like Dr. Keith. I always did. He's a straight up dude. But that's just an example. He was going based on what she said, and he was upset that her eye looked the way it looked. But somebody punched her with a set of keys in her eye, and she started to fight. Cognitive problems, but never wanting to take responsibility. These are the things that our children are suffering. Cognitive problems, may have trouble understanding basic cause and effect, may experience problems with logical thinking. Now, our children really believe that if they get shot 10 times, they're going to get up off the ground and rap 10 rhymes. So they are constantly rapping about killing and dope and sex and drugs and saying they got all this money that they don't have. Logical thinking is gone. And if you say to them, bruh, you lying, they will kill you. This is my issue with how deep mentally we are lost. You're not saved. You're not sanctified. Who told you that? The preacher? That one? You are on your road to redemption and redeeming yourself from not only your sins, but the sins of your father and their father. This is a fact. I got to say it. Now, may experience logical problems with logical thinking, may appear to have a confused thought process, may have difficulty thinking ahead, may have an impaired sense of time. Now, I don't want to break nobody's heart, but truth will break your heart. When you take the mask off, it will break your heart. I know that we think because we go to church and Sunday school and Bible study and all these things that we are saved, but you have not been tested anywhere else. See, Jesus was tested with hunger. He was tested on the mount. Satan had him. Satan said, do this, do that, do this, do that, do this, do that, until he said, get thee behind me, Satan. And then the Bible says Satan left him for a time. In other words, I'm going to be back. At your weakest point, I'm going to get you. So if you're not being tested, the Quran says that people who die always say they want to come back because now that they know better, they'll do better. And that is a lie, because you're dead now. You can't prove that you would do better. And even most people that get sick, I know a man, had a stroke, had a heart attack, was told to stop eating pork. And I was taking pictures at a wedding. I liked the guy. And I said, you're not supposed to be eating pork. Hey, I ain't worried about that. I'm going to say my prayers over it, and whatever going to happen. See, God saved you, and you went back to the same thing again. That's us. We're almost done. May have difficulties with abstract thinking. You can't think outside of the box. And that is the plan of Satan. Satan don't want you outside of the block. He wants you like mindless sheep. So he is contributing to the death of our people. But child emotional neglect is rule number one. Get the mother out of the house, get her to working, and she cannot nurture the child. Find for the least infraction, put the man in jail. He's not around. And if he get out of jail, he has a felony on his record, so he can't do nothing for his children so much. He's always depressed. He goes to the bottle. He goes to drugs. He becomes a drug dealer. So we're excited about shows like with Lucius Lyon in them. I can't remember the name of it. Anything like that excites us. They getting over. They crooked as hell, but they're getting it. They're getting it. That's us. And then on the reverse side of that, because we're so insane, found in the freezer, now we're concerned about it. In Manning, South Carolina, your young ones are dying because of child neglect, and we could care less. I ain't got 100 people listening to this live broadcast, but we got over 1,000 people on antipsychotic medication under the age of 18. Think about that for a minute. Now I want to close. How to recognize and overcome emotional neglect. And I'm going to go through these kind of fast because I want to stay under an hour, and we're doing pretty good. Hopefully it won't be more than an hour and 10 minutes, okay? Because it's mostly silent and invisible. Okay, this is from, I'm sorry, I want to cite this. This is from goodtherapy.org, goodtherapy.org. How to recognize and overcome childhood emotional neglect. This was posted on February 18th of 2016, and the contributing writer was Diane Summers, MALLMFT, goodtherapy.org. And it goes as follows. Because it's mostly silent, invisible, childhood emotional neglect is largely an overlooked phenomenon. And unlike physical neglect or abuse, where there are signs and bruises and all of that, emotional neglect is difficult to identify because we put the mask on. There are frequently no observable signs. Now, I said on last week when I was talking in one of my commentaries about our next door neighbor who's grown now, and she said to us, I can't believe that you all did not know we were over here being abused. They put on such a good mask that we didn't know. Now, emotional neglect can take any form or many forms, from a parent having unrealistic high expectations or not listening attentively, to invalidating a child's emotional experience to the point that he or she begins to feel self-doubt. We all are guilty of that. Symptoms of emotional neglect. I want to read these. Again, numbing out or being cut from one's own feelings, feeling like there's something missing but not being sure of what it is, empty inside no matter what we get, what we buy, what we do, we're only happy temporarily, feeling hollow inside, being easily overwhelmed or discouraged, low self-esteem, being a perfectionist. As I told you, my psychology teacher said that I was trying to be and still try to be. And my ex-wife said, you think you perfect. Nobody don't like you because you think you above everybody else. Yeah, you might be diagnosing it right, but you never asked me why. And if you did ask me and I said to you why, you're not being attentive enough to pay attention. All of this drove me to God and talking, meditating, and thinking inside myself where all these emotions and feelings came from. And started me 27 years ago to looking for answers and sharing the answers. Well, I used to share them in newsletters because the internet wasn't around then for me. We couldn't afford that. But the more I got into technology, the more we began to use it. Lack of clarity regarding others' expectations and your own expectations of yourself. Now, what kind of parents tend to emotionally neglect their children? Authoritarian parents want their children to follow the rules and have little time or inclination for listening to a child's feelings and needs. Permissive parents have a laid-back attitude about child rearing and may let children pretty much fend for themselves. And, I know a guy my mama let me smoke marijuana in the house because she don't want me out high out in the street. I'll beat your raggedy behind you come in my house with some mess like that. Oh, I can take girls in my room. My son tried that one time, and I asked him, was he out of his mind? Parents with narcissistic qualities feel the world revolves around them, so they want you to be great because you my son. Perfectionistic parents tend to believe their children can always do more or better. I'm guilty of that, but I knew that. Absent parents can be removed from a child's life for a variety of reasons, such as death, illness, divorce, working long hours, frequently traveling. Children miss the parent, don't have conversation and time to learn in situations. Nobody told me how to fight, taught me how to fight. I was tired of running as a child. I remember it was a bully named Al in King Street, and I was tired of that guy. And I told him, I'm not running from you no more. But I was standing up there with my hands on my hip, and everybody was laughing like, you're not even ready to fight. And I said, well, nobody's showing me how to fight. How you going to laugh at me and pick at me, but not tell me what to do? Now, tips for recovering from emotional neglect, and then we're going to close. Learn to be aware of positive and negative emotions when you're experiencing them. Stop lying to yourself. If you spent your adult life being disconnected from your feelings, the first step is to learn to identify positive and negative emotions. It's important to acknowledge just good and uncomfortable feelings to begin with. Now, I said something earlier about those who think they're saved. I meant what I said. I want us to understand that it is not as simple as you saying something. Well done is better than well said. You can say it all you want. And many of us believe we have all of these powers to save everybody and do everything. But why is there still a hospital? Why are there still people with Alzheimer's disease and memory loss? Why are people suffering from diabetes and kidney failure? Why is there high blood pressure? If you have this power, it's a placebo. It's all in the mind. Now, I know that we possess energies. And I know that we can connect female and male together, even in sexual contact, and create enough energy to get up and do something great. But you have to do something. How are you going to heal somebody who have no intentions of stop doing what they're doing? I'm not going to stop drinking. What you praying for me for? I don't have an intention to stop. But when they have the intention, and the intent is followed by steps to changing the negative quality, then we're working with something. So what I said, I meant. Identify your needs and take steps to meet them. That's number 2. Many adults who experience emotional neglect as children are often unaware of what they need and typically don't feel deserving of getting their needs met. Many of us want to save the world. We want to save everybody. I just love helping people. But I can look at your life and see that you need help, mental help. I just love helping people. Identify your needs and take steps to meet them. If you believe you don't deserve to have your needs met, acknowledge the belief and see it as just that, a belief, not a fact. I was meditating the other night and I was thinking about all of my fears. And I said, God, I'm a coward. I'm a coward unless you protect me from myself. When I am not the aggressor and someone wants to deal with me in a certain way, I can fight like a man fights. But I am a coward when I get afraid. I can't think. But when God is with me, I stand strong. So I try to stay humble as you should, Be gentle with and take good care of yourself, starting with small steps. Know how we just want to change overnight? Know how you go to the temple or the church or the religious institution and say, I got saved last night and I'm saved and sanctified now, but you still out in the world, you're not saved. Be acknowledging that you have been baptized means that you're trying to change your old ways into new ways. But if you never leave the environment of the old ways, you're not trying to change who you are. Many of us never drank, never smoked, never partied. You go to church all the time and people think you special. Well, you never did these things. These are not evils that you got to deal with. So you see somebody else do, look at them. But you're boring. You don't know how to let your head down. Not even a woman in the church when it comes to sexual relations with your husband, you're boring. Men who are so wrapped up in Jesus and your lack of understanding, you're boring. So the next thing you know, your husband, your wife out cheating, and you think they're the devil, but they were trying to get your attention, but you neglected them emotionally. Be gentle with and take care of yourself, starting with small steps. Now, we talked about childhood emotional neglect, and we talked about some solutions to the problem, but these are not all of them. I can go out throughout the Bible and tell you different chapters and verses that talks about neglect and how it affects the minds of people, how a slave feels like they should stay a slave because they don't feel like they deserve to be free. The children are saying we should have stayed with Pharaoh. At least he treat us better than being out in the desert. And we think that way. We think it's better to be mistreated than to try to do something for yourself, because doing something for yourself is difficult. So I hope that this commentary helped. We were trying to get this thing broadcasting since 9 o'clock this morning. And finally, I pray that it came out well. And we will upload this back up to Facebook. If you're not connected with us on Facebook, please do so. And if you're not connected with us on YouTube, please connect with us. Again, all of these issues that we're facing mentally blocks our connection to God and give us false readings when God is speaking to us, because our emotions and our mental illness are involved with what God is trying to tell us. There is a very spiritual woman here, and I went through an incident where I cut all the nerves in my hand in an accident. And this woman evidently had a vision or a dream that a woman cut me. And no matter what I tell this person, what they believe is that the woman cut me. But really, my ex-wife and I argued. She was pregnant. She put her hands in my face. I twisted her because I trained in martial arts, really like 7-8 years of my life. And defending myself against a helpless woman is not a difficult thing to do. I just put her in a hole and I pushed her down. And I was so angry that she had brought me to that point. But I was cleaning up the house and I went to move the china cabinet in the kitchen and it fell forward. I tried to catch it and it just cut me a little bit right there, but it cut all of the tendons. My hand was frozen. I couldn't do anything with it. So they had to do surgery on my hand many times to try and repair it, but I still can't feel anything. I can't make a fist or anything like that. But my point is, sometimes we are so mixed up in mentally, we think that everything we see is the truth. A lot of times my wife now see me with the woman in her dreams, and I tell her, well, maybe that dream is telling you that I want to be close to you. And that if you can't give me that, maybe I will go out to another woman, but fix the problem first before you make it something worse. So our ability to interpret what God is giving us, to be more empathetic, to be connected with God, is interrupted by all of these ills in our mind. So we have to begin to address them and try to do better. I thank you for tuning in. This is Brother Johnny of the 19 Report. Jamil Salib Zamir. I sincerely thank all of you on Facebook, on YouTube, on my personal website, on our personal website, for tuning in. And please stay tuned. We will be announcing our next broadcast, and I promise you it will be something that helps us to address issues in our own mind, that we may become better individually. As Christ said, you are all God's children of the Most High God, and that the church that you are looking for is within you and I. But we are so busy trying to find it outside because dealing with ourselves is too difficult. Thank you for tuning in, Brother Johnny of the 19 Report.